Hi, this is Syphilisation, a post-colonial forex game in which you play a student doing a group report on Gandhi, Churchill, and the Raj. The idea behind this game is that the standard patterns of forex games tend to uncritically reproduce a lot of worrying and, in particular, colonial tropes around things like how history is a conflict of nations, around there being the single winner, and around the predestination of history, essentially, that all paths lead to the current day. Now, with civilization, what I did was I went through the standard patterns one by one and I tried to find post colonial alternatives. The biggest of these is that civilization is a cooperative game and not a competitive game. I personally do not believe history should be viewed as a clash of empires or clash of civilizations, but instead as a cooperative endeavor in which we all try to progress the human state. Right? In civilization, as you're doing a group report, you must cooperate and not compete. You're all in it together. And of course, there will always be conflict, as anyone who's done a group report knows, but it's towards a common goal instead of a competitive goal. And that drastically changes the way you interact with the other players. Now, the other big thing here is that civilization is against growth for the sake of growth. Capitalism tends to tell us to always be bigger and better and more expensive, while civilization says maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe it's best not to create a system that causes unchecked pollution and unchecked climate change. Maybe instead we can go for something more sustainable. The reason that it's so important to have post-colonial thought like this is because colonial thinking is pervasive not only in forex games but in the modern world, right? Colonialism is still around. There are many countries that still have colonial entities, including Western countries like the United States, including India, and of course, including the Middle East, right? It is thus important that we have games that also represent post-colonial thought so that people can better identify colonialism as it comes, better identify the colonialism in their own thinking, and figure out ways to transcend all of this and find something new. One of the other big post-colonial features of civilization is that there's a lot more history from below. The people inside your civ all have their own goals, their own desires, and their own projects that they do autonomously. They do things without needing the player to determine what it is that they do. It's good to see history from the perspective of the people at the bottom and not just from the leaders at the top. Right? In aid of this, one of the things you can do as a player is choose to support the people at the bottom, so that instead of dictating what they do, you make it easier for them to be productive in their own ways. Right? It's critical here to start thinking of a civilization and of people as the people and not just as the person on top. Right? It's critical to think of history in places like India's post-colonial movement as not just the actions of people like Gandhi and Nehru, but also the person on the street who was fundamental to the overthrowing the Raj. And in aid of that, one of the things civilization does is it presents you with a lot of real facts about real people. So here we have Virginia Cowles talking about how Churchill, when he met as captain, asked him, "Do you like war?" This is a real fact that actually happened to Winston Churchill. And here you can see Churchill himself talking about Smuts and how he was willing to separate Smuts's liberal views from his racism. And here again you see Cowles summarizing Churchill, a man whom she personally knew. Forex games and video games as a whole tend towards speculative fiction. Right? What if India and the Roman Empire were adjacent to each other in the year 1000 BC? Right? Civilization works with actual history, actual facts, so that you're not seeing things from these mile high perspectives, but actually engaging with the complexities of what happened. It's important to understand that the world we're in now is not the best of all worlds, and the thinking that we have now is not the best of all thinking. And while most 4X games will uncritically reproduce the status quo, I think it's important to have something in the space that challenges existing thought patterns.